Those who know the right questions must reach those asking the wrong ones, and sometimes even the lost. I protect my identity because truth has a body count. Welcome to the Anarchist File. Have you ever tried to register a car? You walk in with your title, your insurance, your ID, your birth certificate, proof of residency, and a soul you willing to part within. They still tell you you're missing Form 6 to be subsection hell. Bureaucracy is a religion, and every government building is a cathedral to inefficiency. You don't enter these spaces to complete tasks. You enter to demonstrate compliance, pledge fealty to the clipboard class, and suffer. See, the average person thinks the DMV exists to give you a license. That FAFSA is there to fund education. That city hall is staffed by people who actually want you to launch that food truck. No, that's the myth. That's the cute bedtime story you tell yourself to sleep peacefully under the gentle hum of fluorescent lights. The truth. Bureaucracy isn't there to serve you. It's there to process you. Slowly, painfully, in triplicate. Now I know what you're thinking. That's just how complex systems work. Sure, if those systems were designed by people who cared, but they weren't. They were designed by committee, managed by people whose only incentive is not getting fired, and enforced by people who will literally delay your passport over a missing middle initial. This isn't just paperwork. It's psychological warfare. Try canceling a gym membership in a major U.S. city. They'll have you on hold for 40 minutes. They'll transfer you 5 times. They'll tell you they can't find your account. But the second you miss a payment, boom, collections agency, then that's just private sector bureaucratic friction. The government, variety, that's a special kind of evil. The kind of evil that shows up in beige cubicles, wears a lanyard, and takes its lunch break exactly at 12 o'clock p.m. Even if you've been waiting since 9 a.m. with your number in hand. You ever sat in a county office for 7 hours just to be told our system is down? Come back tomorrow? That's not a glitch. That's the design. Bureaucracy doesn't care about outcomes. It cares about obedience, completionism, conformity. Your paperwork is more important than your problem. Your form must be correct, even if your house is on fire. Especially if your house is on fire. God forbid you skip a step. 'Cause skipping steps, that's cheating the system. That's gaming the rules. That's thinking you're special. And no one hates exceptionalism more than bureaucrats. They don't want you efficient. They want you compliant, predictable, slouching at the mercy of a desk jockey who couldn't hack it in the private sector. So now they process your food stamps and act like they're doing you a favor. And before you accuse me of elitism, don't. This isn't about hating public servants. This is about exposing a machine that's fundamentally designed to extract time, dignity, and patience from the public while producing next to nothing in return. It's about the cost, not in dollars, but in mind share. The hours of your life spent circling a government website trying to reset a login. The emotional degradation of being told, sorry, that's the wrong department, for the 5th time in one morning. The existential dread of realizing that if you want to get your housing voucher, you better bring snacks, because you're going to spend all day in a plastic chair under a flickering light. And the worst part, you get used to it. You start to think this is normal. You start scheduling your whole week around bureaucratic visits. You start prepping like it's a boss, battle printing documents, highlighting forms, bringing folders thicker than your college thesis. You start playing the game, because fighting the machine doesn't work. You comply, and you call it adulthood. But here's the plot twist. They want you to say out loud, this isn't how it has to be. There are countries, real ones, with passports and economies where you can start a business online in 10 minutes, where government services come to you, where documents are digital, signatures are optional, and no one asks you to fax anything, because it's 2025, and most of the world has evolved, but not us, not America. Here the bureaucracy beast is alive, bloated, and very hungry, and every year, it demands tribute in the form of your time, your patience, and your willingness to pretend that it all makes sense. Spoiler, it doesn't. And in this video, we're going to burn the myth to the ground. Let's start where it hurts, your real life. Because bureaucracy doesn't live in theory. It doesn't haunt white papers or economic textbooks. It shows up in the rawest parts of your adulthood, where the rules don't bend, the hours disappear, and the forms multiply like mold in a poorly ventilated apartment. Try getting a driver's license in a new state. First, you need proof of residency. Okay, that should be easy, except it's not, because your lease doesn't count. Your phone bill doesn't count. Your gym membership doesn't count. They want a bank statement mailed to your physical address, not emailed. Not PDF-ed, not print-enabled like it's 1993. Then you show up with the right document, and they tell you, you're missing the original social security card, not a copy, not a number, not a notarized affidavit from your mom. No, they want the paper card issued to you when you were 6 years old and couldn't T-spell your last name, and you comply. Because what else can you do? Or try starting a small business. Do you think entrepreneurship is about taking risks, solving problems, creating value? That's cute. In reality, it's about navigating the Kafkaesque horror of zoning laws. City permits, state filings, I numbers, food handling certifications, workers' comp insurance, signage ordinances, and quarterly tax prepayments. You wanted to sell smoothies? Cool. First, pay $250 to the health department for an inspection. Buy a sink with 3 basins, and fill out Form 847B with your anticipated waste disposal methodology. Oh, and don't forget the fire marshal visit. He comes by once every presidential administration to tell you your extension cord violates code. That'll be another $150. By the time you're approved, your dream has aged 18 months and is legally allowed to vote. That's how they do it. They drag out the process so long that only the already connected or already capitalized survive. Bureaucracy is the velvet rope of the state. It pretends to be neutral, but in practice it filters out the It's why every sandwich shop in your neighborhood is either a franchise or has a cousin on the board of the health department. And if you're poor, good luck. Because bureaucracy punishes poverty with paperwork. Want food stamps? Cool. Here's a 22-page application and 3 interviews. Miss one call, and they lose your file. Want housing assistance? Be prepared to prove you're poor every 3 months, forever, with W-2 South. Bank statements, urine samples, and a psychic reading. They don't want you to succeed. They want you to survive barely and to be so busy proving your own suffering that you don't have time to question the system and the middle class. They're drowning too. FSA is a full-time job. Healthcare enrollment is a season now. Taxes are a ritual sacrifice. Every April, Americans must spend hours, sometimes days, trying to calculate what the IRS already knows but won't tell you. If you're wrong, they fine you. If you're right, they keep your refund until August. And you think this is normal? You think it's just part of being a grown-up? You think your ability to navigate nonsense is a mark of maturity? It's not. It's a mark of defeat. A truly functional system wouldn't require this level of clerical kung fu just to function as a citizen. A truly efficient state would automate, simplify, and scale the way private companies do when they actually want your money. But government doesn't want your money, it already takes it. What it wants is your compliance. That's why the forms are vague. That's why the help desk doesn't help. That's why your unemployment claim takes 8 weeks and a prayer. They want you exhausted. They want you trained. They want you to accept that interacting with the state means crawling. They call it oversight. You call it oppression. Because that's what it is. A soft, sticky, slow-motion form of oppression. It doesn't come with handcuffs or gun barrels. It comes with emails that go unanswered and phone trees with no humans. It comes with 3-month wait lists. And we only take walk-ins on the second Tuesday of the month, policies. It's death by process. And even when it's not malicious, it's still embarrassing. Imagine being 28 years old, a college graduate, working full-time, and having to beg a sleepy county employee to reprint your birth certificate because your landlord wants a notarized copy to renew your lease. Imagine paying $35 for it. Imagine waiting 6 weeks. Imagine it arrives misprinted. That's not just inefficiency. That's contempt. Contempt for your time. Contempt for your aspirations. Contempt for the very idea that maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't need government permission to live a life. But bureaucracy doesn't just block the door, it owns the building. It's built into your schooling, your career, your health, your mobility, your death. Public school kids know it well. Want a field trip? Permission slip? Want to change classes? See the counselor? Need lunch? Wait in line? Sign in. Get your card scanned. Don't be late, don't be loud, don't disrupt the order. And definitely don't question the rules there above you. They always have been. You're trained for this. You're raised to believe that systems come first, people second. And by the time you're old enough to ask why, you've got bills to pay and back pain, so you'll let it slide. You become the type of person who plans your week around which agency you need to contact. The kind of person who keeps folders labeled documents. The kind of person who scans their signature in advance, because you never know when you have to e-sign something written in Comic Sans by a public notary whose website still uses Flash. And still, you tell yourself you're free, because you can vote, because you can leave a Yelp review, because the TSA only touched you twice this time. But let's be clear, if freedom means anything, it should mean the ability to live without asking permission for things that don't hurt anyone. Start a business, build a deck, teach your kid at home, buy a car, cut someone's hair, grow tomatoes and sell them at a stand. You shouldn't need 17 licenses and a legal team to do any of that. But in the eyes of the state, you do. Because the bureaucracy beast doesn't trust you. It doesn't believe you're competent. It doesn't believe you're honest. It doesn't believe you deserve ease. It believes you must be managed. And it's happy to eat your time until you believe it too. You ever wonder why it's like this? Why the line never moves? Why the website crashes when you actually need it? Why every single form has a box that's not quite meant for you, but you fill it out anyway? Because if you leave it blank, your application vanishes into a digital oubliette. Let me explain why. Bureaucracy thrives for the same reason mold thrives. Darkness. stagnation, and just enough moisture to keep it alive. And in the case of government red tape, that moisture is tax money, your productivity, your potential, siphoned off and redistributed to maintain a machine that exists to justify its own existence. A bureaucracy doesn't need to work. It just needs to be necessary enough that you can't root around it. That's how it's genius. It inserts itself between you and your life and then charges you for the inconvenience. And it gets away with it because it cloaks itself in process, not results, not impact. Process. Bureaucrats don't ask, did we help people? They ask, did we follow protocol? And protocol always means more meetings, more approvals, more steps, more oversight, more risk aversion, more signatures, more offices, more stakeholders, more budgets, more departments. The bigger the problem, the more layers they add. Not to solve it, God no, that would make them obsolete. No, they add layers to slow it down, to distribute the blame, to dilute the accountability so no one can say exactly who's responsible for your time being wasted. Only that the system is working exactly as designed. If you've ever wondered why a pothole can exist for 3 years while a parking ticket arrives in 48 hours, that's why. Bureaucracies are incentive engines. They only move quickly when you owe them. The rest? Drag your feet, wait for budget approvals, blame the backlog, apologize in passive voice. We regret any inconvenience you may have experienced. They don't serve you. They manage your compliance. And at the highest level, that's the point. Bureaucracy isn't about service, it's about control. Because once your life runs through a system, that system owns you. You don't file your taxes, you submit to the IRS. You don't renew your license, you beg the state to confirm you still exist. And what makes it worse? You can't opt out. You can't just say, no thanks, I'll live off the grid. Try it. Try buying land, building a house, collecting rainwater, planting crops, homeschooling your kids, and selling goods for gold. You'll be hit with zoning violations, environmental reviews, child welfare investigations, and probably a dozen local ordinances you've never heard of. Freedom? They told you. But freedom, in a bureaucratic state, is just the space between approvals. Because every decision must be documented. Every action must be tracked. Every request must be processed. Even your silence must be acknowledged. Failure to respond within 14 days will result in a default judgment. Beautiful, this is the managerial mindset run amok. The cult of risk management over actual output. They don't want innovators. They want caretakers of the spreadsheet. And the result? Nobody gets fired for doing nothing. They only get fired for doing something wrong. So the safest move, the one every smart bureaucrat makes, is to do as little as possible. As slowly as possible, with as many layers of approval as possible. That's how you get a culture where everyone is just following procedure, and yet somehow, no one can help you. That's how you get school administrators who spend more time on compliance documents than teaching. Hospitals where nurses input symptoms into a tablet instead of treating patients. City offices where your form sits on a desk for 14 days. Because the one guy who knows the system went on vacation and didn't train his replacement. And don't mistake this for laziness. It's worse than laziness. It's incentivized stagnation. An entire economy built around doing nothing but doing it formally, slowly, and with an airtight paper trail so no one can be blamed. It's inertia as a career path. And if you try to fix it, you'll threaten the whole damn thing. That's why real reform never happens. Every attempt at streamlining a bureaucracy ends up creating a new one. Oh, the permit system is broken. Let's create a task force to assess it. Oh, the task force is slow. Let's assign a compliance officer to audit the task force. Oh, the audit found inefficiencies. Let's hire a process improvement consultant. Now you've got 4 new departments, and the pothole's still there. Bureaucracy is the opposite of the market. In the market, bad ideas die fast. You launch a dumb product, no one buys it. You make a bad bet, you eat the loss. That's feedback. That's growth. That's skin in the game. In a bureaucracy, failure just means asking for more funding. You didn't fix the problem? Obviously, you were under-resourced. You made it worse. Well, the system was outdated. You duplicated efforts with another agency. Good? That means redundancy? You caused harm? Write a report? Publish a memo? Restructure? Promote yourself to chief risk officer and keep collecting checks. The worst part is, nobody sees it anymore. It's so normal, so embedded, so abrupt. We don't even question the absurdity. The fact that we treat standing in line for 4 hours to renew a license as expected, that people build entire TikTok channels teaching others how to navigate FAFSA, that every middle-class family has a file cabinet labeled important documents like it's the Cold War. That's not adulthood. That's a hostage situation dressed up as responsibility. And you might say, well, it's better than chaos. Better than nothing. No, that's the scam. They want you to believe bureaucracy is the price of order. But order without efficiency is just tyranny in slow motion. And in a world where Amazon can deliver a package in 12 hours, there is no excuse for a government system that takes 12 weeks to process your application to drive a truck. Unless, of course, delays the goal. Because if things worked too well, you'd stop needing them. And if you stopped needing them, what would all these middle managers do? How would they justify their salaries? What would they manage? That's the secret. The bureaucracy beast doesn't exist to help. It exists to replicate. It's a parasite that convinces you it's medicine. It feeds on your time, your patience, and your fear of doing it wrong. And every year, it grows. More departments, more compliance. More systems, more rules, more ways to punish you for skipping a step they didn't tell you about, and you keep playing along. Because what else can you do? There's a reason you feel tired after a day at the DMV. It's not the bad chairs or fluorescent lights. It's because bureaucracy isn't just a time thief. It's a mental conditioning device, a behavioral choke collar. It trains you cyclically, persistently to internalize helplessness. You walk in with purpose, you walk out a domesticated peasant, and you think I'm exaggerating. Think back. The first time you really interacted with the state, not a cartoon flag in school, not a civics lesson, but the actual machinery. Maybe it was a parking ticket. Maybe it was applying for financial aid. Maybe it was that time your identity got flagged because some DMV in Indiana confused you with the guy who skipped a court date in whatever it was. Remember how it felt? Disorienting, arbitrary, powerless. And you don't fight it, you comply. You overcompensate. You apologize to a public employee who lost your paperwork and then made you feel like it was your fault. You bring extra documents next time. You triple check the forms. You arrive early and dress modestly and speak politely and hope that today you redeemed valid enough to receive your permissions. And that's the thing. You don't walk into a bureaucracy as a citizen. You walk in as a supplicant. You come to prove yourself. You come to be measured. You, Dante, request a license. You prove you worthy of being allowed to operate a car on public roads. You, Dante, apply for assistance. You plead your poverty before a panel of mid-tier clerks trained in suspicion. And this breeds something insidious, psychological passivity, the quiet ambient understanding that your life requires permission, that your dreams must be approved, that your movements must be logged. And when you internalize that, when it becomes your baseline, you start to live differently. You plan around the system, you ask fewer questions, you take fewer risks, you become small, polite, obedient, you become manageable. And that's the point. Bureaucracy is not just about forms. It's about forming minds. It teaches you, from childhood, that rules matter more than outcomes, that intention means nothing without documentation, that the right way is the slow way, that action without approval is dangerous, even if it works. Remember school? Raise your hand. Wait your turn. Use the template. Stay in the line. Memorize the instructions, not because they make sense, but because that's how it's done. And if you break the rules, even for a good reason, you're punished, because obedience is the product. The system doesn't want initiative, it wants submission. And that conditioning doesn't stop at graduation. You go to college, paperwork, you get a job, paperwork, you pay taxes, paperwork, you go to the doctor, paperwork, you get married, have kids, buy a house, paperwork, until your life is less about what you do and more about what you can prove you're allowed to do. And they sell it to you as responsibility. They say, this is what adults do. No, this is what tamed adults do. This is what over-socialized, compliance-trained, risk-averse adults do in a culture where autonomy is a privilege, not a right. And if you think this is just philosophical whining, think again. There are costs, real costs, psychological costs. Entrepreneurship dies when red tape makes starting a business feel like climbing Everest and flops. Creativity dies when creators need grants, licenses, and municipal approvals just to throw an event. Dissent dies when people are too afraid of fines, audits, or zoning complaints to speak or act freely. And identity itself erodes when your every move must be credentialed, authorized, stamped, verified, and filed. Even basic generosity gets swallowed. Try giving someone a free meal in a city park. The health department will be on you like you're running a meth lab. Try cutting someone's hair for cash without a license. That's a $1,000 fine. Try helping a friend with their taxes. That's unauthorized financial advising. And so, we stop. We stop doing. We stop helping. We stop leading. We become quiet, credentialed, tired. We stop being neighbors and become applicants. We become numbers in a queue. Cases in a folder. Tasks to be completed, not people to be served. And the real tragedy, we forget it wasn't always like this. There was a time, yes, even in America, when people started businesses in their garages, when kids sold lemonade without a permit, when you could fix your neighbor's plumbing without a license, and nobody freaked out. Was it perfect? No, but it was alive. It was fluid. It was free. And then came the forms, the checklists, the departments, the oversight. And now, a kid can't sell cookies without a temporary vendor license. An artist can't busk without paying a city fee. A family can build a guest house without an environmental impact review that costs more than the house itself. We traded vitality for regulation. We traded trust for compliance. We traded agency for safety. And now, we're drowning in rules that no one understands. Enforced by people who don't care, justified by people who aren't accountable. And you know the worst part? We tell ourselves it's for our own good. That the state is protecting us. That the system is necessary. That without the beast, we'd descend into chaos. But let me ask you, which feels more like chaos? A kid selling lemonade on the sidewalk? Or a system that requires fingerprinting, tax IDs, and food handler training to do the same? Which one ruins lives? The kid with the sign? Or the city that fines his parents $500? This isn't order. This isn't safety. This is madness in slow motion. Bureaucracy doesn't keep us safe. It keeps us still. And if you want to be free, you have to unlearn it. You have to stop asking for permission to live. You want to beat the system? You don't need a revolution. You need refusal. Not loud, not messy, not neon-haired protest. Refusal, quiet refusal, strategic refusal, sovereign refusal. Refuse to internalize their guilt systems. Refuse to see compliance as virtue. Refuse to call waste process, or to mistake inconvenience for civic engagement. Refuse to play the part they've scripted for you. The humble applicant, the nervous citizen, the patient subject. Refuse the ritual. Refuse to feel bad when their site crashes and your application fails. Refuse to wait silently when a desk clerk tells you to just come back another day. Refuse the idea that your time is worthless because theirs is always running behind. Refuse the emotional submission that comes with filling out the 19th form. This year, just to prove you still eligible to exist. And yes, pay your taxes if you have to. File the paperwork if you must. Smile politely. But never, ever confuse obedience with agreement. Play the game only long enough to build your exit. Because there is an exit. It starts small. It starts when you stop waiting for permission to move. It starts when you solve problems without involving the machine. When you barter. When you build. When you teach yourself skills that don't require credentials. When you take your life offline, off-grid, out of reach from a system that exists to clip your wings and call it a haircut. Start with one project. One decision. One act that doesn't require a stamp, an application, a clerk's nod of approval. Something that exists purely because you willed it into existence. That's freedom, not trending, not certified, not documented, just done. They won't like it. Of course they won't. Because independent people are hard to govern. Sovereign people don't fit inside files. Autonomous minds don't submit quietly. And when you stop running your dreams through their forms, their power slips. Bureaucracy is a parasite that survives by convincing the host it's vital, but it's not. It's bloated. It's slow. It's allergic to evolution and the future. The future belongs to speed, to initiative, to clarity, to the builders and hackers and iconoclasts who'd rather ask forgiveness if that than wait for approval. You think the system is strong because it's everywhere? No, it's everywhere because it's weak. Because it knows it can't compete with you unshackled. So it multiplies rules, it inflates processes. It creates an obstacle course of clerical friction not to serve you, but to slow you down. But you've seen through it now. You know what it is? You feel the insult of it, and you're done. Let the bureaucrats guard their cubicles like medieval clerics. Let them count staplers and send emails and hold meetings about whether or not your form needed to be cited. You've got a different plan. A fast plan, a private plan, a powerful, beautiful, wildly non-compliant plan that docentee asks permission and docentee apologize for the velocity of its ambition. And if you still feel fear good, that means you're close. Fear is the body's last defense before freedom. Push through. They want you patient. They want you polite. They want you locked in a queue of your own making. But you want out. And the first step out is simple. Move. Before the form is approved. Before the line gets shorter. Before the website loads. Before the clerk returns from break. The story isn't over. This was the Anarchist File.